Well, the time that we've been waiting for is here. It is an absolute honor and a pleasure to have you here, Mr. Valdez, Maestro Valdez.
Thank you,
You
Dr. Ruiz.
No. I know in the past you had allowed me to call you Luis. May I call you Luis for
Of
this
course,
interview?
of course.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. You know, you have allowed us to be Mexican Americans and be very proud of who we are because of all your success. You know, you made us proud, and then you made us cry, and then you made us laugh, and then you taught us. Then you taught us so much about our culture, about our history, our place in this country. So if you allow me, I would love to for a minute, introduce you.
Okay.
So
I'd like to meet me. A ver cómo.
So El Maestro Valdez is regarded as one of the most important and influential American playwrights living today. His internationally renowned and Obie Award-winning theater company, El Teatro Campesino, the Farm Workers Theater, was founded by Mr. Valdez in 1965 in the heat of the United Farm Workers struggle and the Great Delano Grape Strike in California's Central Valley. His involvement with Cesar Chavez and the early Chicano movement left an indelible mark that remained embodied in all his work even after he left the United Farm Workers in 1967. The list of his award-winning and empowering plays is very long. From the early actos, Las Dos Caras del Patroncito, and the Quinta Temporada, short plays written to encourage campesinos to leave the field and join the United Farm Workers, all the way to, of course, the play that re-examines the Sleepy Lagoon trial in 1942 and the Suit riots in 1943, two of the darkest moments in Los Angeles urban history. Suit, considered a masterpiece of the American theater, as well as the first Chicano play in Broadway and the first Chicano major feature film. Mr. Valdez, numerous features, film, and television credits include, amongst others, the box office hit La Bamba, starring Lou Diamond Phillips, Cisco Kid, starring Jimmy Smith and Cheech Marin, and Corridos, Tale of Passion and Revolution, starring Linda Ronstadt. Mr. Valdez has never strayed far from his own farm work roots. His company, El Teatro Campesino, is located 60 miles south of San Jose in the rural community of San Juan Bautista, California. This theater, tucked away in San Bernardino County, is the most important and longest-lasting running Chicano theater in the United States. Mr. Valdez's hard work and long creative career has won him countless awards, including numerous LA Drama Critics Award, Dramalog Awards, Bay Area Critics Award, the prestigious George Peabody Award for Excellence in Television, the Presidential Medal of Arts, the Governor's Award of California Arts Council, and the Mexico's prestigious Águila Azteca Award, given to individuals whose work promotes cultural excellence and exchange between the U.S. and Mexico. In September 2016, he was awarded the National Medal of the Arts by President Obama at the White House. In May 2017, he was awarded the Tower Awards by San Jose State University, the university's highest award given to San Jose State exemplars. As an educator, he has taught at the University of California, Berkeley, UC Santa Cruz, Fresno State University, and was one of the founding professors at CSU Monterey Bay. He is the recipient of honorary doctorates from, amongst other, University of Rhode Island, the University of South Florida, Cal Arts, the University of Santa Clara, and his alma mater, San Jose State University. Mr. Valdez was included into the College of Fellows of the American Theater at the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. In 2007, he was awarded a Rockefeller Fellowship, one of the only 50 U.S. artists so honored. The world premiere of his latest play, Valley of the Hearts, opened to rave reviews and sold out audience at San Jose State Company in 2016. Mr. Valdez' new play, Adios Mama Carlota, premieres at San Jose State Company in 2019. What an amazing career, my friend. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And again, it's such an honor to have him here with us, right? This is an amazing opportunity for these young people and for everyone to know a little bit more about you, because you are a true history maker.
Let me start by congratulating you, okay, and the Mexican American Cultural Education
Thank
Foundation.
Thank you.
Each of those words is completely significant. I remember, I guess when I was in high school, just before I started college at San Jose State in 1958. And in 1958, we didn't call ourselves Mexicans. Nobody called us Mexicans. We were Spanish. We were Spanish people. Mexican was an insult. It still is. Call somebody a Mexican. So a number of the students then picked up on Mexican American. We put that together. And that seemed new and refreshing and enlightening to us. We were Americans, we were Mexican Americans. And it worked for a while until that wasn't satisfactory, so we changed it to Chicano. We grounded it, you know, in our Pachuco culture in the streets. And so we were Chicano for a while. It was a wonderful Chicano movement during the 60s and 70s. We have some veteranos here. Mocte remembers very well. But it was changed after that to Hispanic, you know, from outside. And today we have Latinx, which is fine with me, call yourselves whatever you want. You know? It's not Latino and it's not Latina. Probably that's a good thing. It's not English either. And it's not Spanish, it's not any language. So it's a little sterile in my estimation. But I understand what the effort is. It's this search to try to get rid of the hyphen and to see who we are. But ultimately, we're all Americans in the continental sense. We've been Americans before America existed. We've been Americans for as long as humanity has been in this hemisphere, if you want to play that game, you know. So what do we call ourselves? I call myself an American, but a continental American. And I share that with any and everybody from any part of the world that wants to come and be an American. I'll share that. That's right, we have that in common. That's good, you know. Sometimes I like just to be called a Mexican. American, a Mexican, American, a Mexican. But it's particular to my background as a Chicano, but I'm willing to open that up and to admit that the world is complex and that we need to understand each other and that people get assimilation and acculturation confused. And so I have acculturated as an American. I was an English major. I've studied Europe. I've been there many times. I love Europe. I love Europeans, you know, as far as that's concerned. I love white Americans. I have no problem with that, you know, except the term, which is any color, any single color, is a little too limiting. White people aren't really white, you know, they're salmon.
Yeah,
you know, but the fact is that, you know, these are my friends, these are members of my family, so how can I deny that? And I've integrated, I've assimilated that. I have become European in the process. And I can understand what a shock it was for Moctezuma Ilhuicamina, not Moctezuma Esparza, Moctezuma Ilhuicamina, the Aztec emperor or speaker, to confront our other ancestor, Hernan Cortés, and meet face to face. And I can appreciate the gap that must have existed between these two human beings. And Malinche was there too, as a gap that existed between men and women and between her background. She spoke, she was bilingual. She spoke Nahuatl and she spoke Maya Yucateco, which made her the translator. But in any case, that gap has been getting narrower and narrower and narrower for 500 years. And you are the end product of that. You got to know that. You are America. You are the sum total of the whole evolution of American history for the last 500 years. And all of the suffering and all of the troubles that our people have gone through have been for you, so you could be where you are today, so you can pass the torch to the next generation. But it's an evolving thing, but all of these, Mexican-American culture, we used to say culture is political, it is. And so we became a cultural organization because of political reasons. You know, El Teatro Campesino realized that theater was not just theater; it was a weapon. It was a way to educate, like education. So all of that foundation. It's a lovely title. I congratulate you, and I hope to see much more come from this foundation.
Thank you,
But
thank you. Such a wonderful explanation, and we can see that you're a great teacher and very knowledgeable man, and you have throughout your career always, although you have so much success, you always go back to your roots. You always go back to Northern California, to a farming community, and help the people there, which is very unique. Most people that have had your success would be living the Hollywood life. Something very powerful in your childhood and your upbringing must have given you the responsibility to serve, the responsibility to educate, which you have done through your theater. Could you share with us a little bit about that childhood experience that has created this fire that we see?
Well, I come from a very loving family. We were very poor. We didn't have any money. We were farm workers, but love, that's all my parents could give us, basically. My dad never got past the 5th grade. His father died when he was 12, so he went to work like a man. He became the sole support of his family. Never went back to school. But he loved books, and I think that if he'd been able to go to university, he would have been a history professor, because he loved history, and he passed that love on to me. I love history because of him. But when we were kids and we were migrants going up and down the state, he never failed to stop at a landmark, or we'd go to the missions, something that was cheap, it was free. But that's how I began to appreciate my history. And San Juan Bautista, where we live, is one of those places. It's not the only place. There were 21 missions in California. The LA area has many that are significant because they were the first ones. San Gabriel, And there was an indigenous, a woman leader, Toypurina. I don't know if you know about Toypurina. Do you know about her? She was a Gabrieleña. They called them Gabrieleños. That's not really their names. But they were Southern California indigenas. And she led a revolt that was successful in San Gabriel. And the Spanish who were here, the colonists, eventually arrested her. But instead of killing her, they married her off to a Spanish soldier. I guess because she was a woman, and they wanted to humiliate her. And he got her pregnant with several children. And eventually, she died young because of all the suffering and deprivations. Who knows what her life was like. But she's buried in San Juan Bautista. And in an unmarked grave, there are several thousand Indians there. They built the mission. And we're very conscious of that. And the reason that we settled in San Juan Bautista in 1971 was because we wanted to resurrect the history of California. And I wanted to live in a place that had once been Mexico, because the whole state had been Mexico. But our cities are so big that we can't find Mexico here anymore, But in San Juan, you can still see it. You can see it in the land. And we see it in the mission. And I said, well, here at least I can imagine that I'm at the start again of the Americanization process, and it frees me. So as a writer, you can write anywhere. As a director and as an actor and as a producer, Los Angeles is my professional home. I come here to get my work done, or New York or Chicago or wherever, but LA is particularly special to me because this is home as well. But the whole state of California is my home. Okay? I'm a Californian.
So you grew up in a time when the repression against Mexicans was very severe and access to education was limited. And somehow you have achieved this amazing success that we see today. Being that we're surrounded by young people and people that dream one day being like you, tell us what was your secret? How is that you were so capable of achieving this success?
I think you have to learn to appreciate what you have and what you can work with. And as a kid working in the fields, my hands had to stay busy, my feet, my body, but my mind was free. So it didn't matter what we were picking, tomatoes or strawberries or prunes, it didn't matter. I'd have these wild imagination, these wild journeys in my head. This is how I kept myself entertained. And I had these big plans about what I was going to do at the end of the day. It never worked out because I was too damn tired, with my whole family at the end of the day. But the next day I started dreaming again, right? Until one day, I actually began to do stuff, and I discovered the secret of paper mache in the first grade. And that opened up everything, because you could take newspaper or a paper bag and make a mask, make a puppet, make model airplanes, whatever it was. Bamboo became a big discovery for me because it was free. And I could make airplanes out of bamboo, And so if you discover that you can create, it doesn't matter that you're poor. It doesn't matter. Money is not the issue there. It's only your imagination, and it's what your hands can do. And a lot of people, a lot of Chicanos, unfortunately, don't discover that they're creative until they're locked up someplace and they begin to draw. Say, oh, I can do this. They didn't realize they could do that. Well, a lot of us know we can make music. That's one of our first introductions. And that's great, that's beautiful. That we discover that we can dance. So when we started the Teatro Campesino, the idea was to give the people the power of the arts directly.
Yes.
You don't have to be educated. You don't even have to know how to read and write. Right. Anybody can act. Anybody can entertain. And some people do it naturally. Natural, Felipe Cantú, one of our original founding members of the Teatro Campesino, he was an old man at 47, when we pulled him out of the fields. But he was a genius. He was amazing, The world didn't discover him, the teatro did, Mm-hmm. But he was untrained, but natural born funny genius, And he was in La Bamba. He's the guy with the rattlesnakes. That's Felipe Cantú,
One thing that you mentioned to me was that your love, and of course something that you inherit in part from your father, your love for learning.
Yes.
You mentioned to me something that we want to remind our friends that you were a great student. You earned E's, straight E's, right?
Yeah.
How many straight E's did you get?
The first year, 52 E's, yeah.
E's in those days were the A's of today.
Those straight E's.
And of
I
course,
had a wonderful first grade teacher, Mrs. Smiley, and there were two first grades. This is in Early Mark, right next to Delano. First grades, and Mrs. Smiley had one class, and Mrs. Cheeseman had the other class. There were two first grades in this Army bungalow building. This was just after World War II, 1946. And so Mrs. Smiley discovered that I could sing Three Blind Mice in Spanish. Tres ratas ciegas, which my mother taught me. Tres ratas ciegas, mira cómo van, mira, And so I could do the whole thing, and I loved singing it, and she always, come on, sing it. So finally, Mrs. Cheeseman said, when are you going to come over and sing it over here? So I went to the next class and sang Tres ratas ciegas, And they loved it. The kids, the Anglo kids, everybody, oh, you're singing Three Blind Mice in Spanish, So that made me a performer in the first grade, right? But I loved school. I loved numbers. I loved letters. It helps a little bit that my parents were born in Arizona, so I was bilingual. I wasn't, not perfectly bilingual, but bilingual. I was able to communicate. So I became the translator in school. And there was a little girl I'll never forget. That Christmas, that first Christmas, where you exchange names. And you want the rich Anglo kids to get your name. I wanted the growers' kids. Who's got my name? And it turns out this little girl has my name. I said, oh, man, pobrecita, I knew I wasn't going to get very much, And so, and I got a grower's kid, So I got him a football, And she got me some little wooden thing. And I was appreciative. But I felt guilty. I felt, oh, it's too bad she got my name, Then one day, we come back after Christmas, and she's crying. They called me to the office. I didn't know why. And they called me to the office. I was the translator for the school, for the kids, because I was bilingual. And so they said, what's the matter with her? And she was crying and weeping. She was saying, my parents left me. Me abandonaron, me dejaron mis padres, And I said, she says her parents left her, abandoned her. So we took her to her place where she lived, which is down the street from me. They were in a little trailer, and the trailer was gone. Nomás los asientos, the foundation was there, and it was horrifying. It horrified me to say, oh my God, if my parents took off like that, what would I do? And she was totally traumatized, crying, weeping, couldn't stop crying. And I said, ya está bien, está bien. And so finally, her parents did show up in the afternoon. They had told her, but she forgot that they were moving to the next town. But she was so traumatized that a few months later, I heard she died. She died of pneumonia. And I always felt guilty about the Christmas present, but I was a translator. And I always wondered, why the hell am I the translator? I'm a 6-year-old kid. But, again, I helped when I could, but that stayed with me. That stayed with me.
Well, those are the experiences that shape our life, right?
Yeah.
And I know I read your story, and I know that you were an excellent student. You got scholarships. You went to college. You are a highly educated man, and of course you then started some amazing, institutions. For example, in Monterey, you started the arts. Let me remember the
Institute for Teledramatic Arts.
The Teledramatic Arts and Technology.
Right.
Thank you for and of course that was incredibly progressive at the time, and of course that in a way kind of pushed you into the TV and film and different things like that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Was actually after.
Tell us about that experience, because I think it's very important for us to know more about that your life in the film and industry, and maybe how this started, or how you've been so influential in this part, in the TV film. And how do you feel about the TV film? How are we today here as Mexican Americans, as Latinos? How are we doing? Have you seen changes?
There's changes. There are changes. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy still, but there are definite changes, and we can do it. I mean, that was
what would be the
my whole
secret?
point.
What would you
we
recommend?
can do this. There's a number of ways to approach this. My dad, I should talk about my mother too, because she's so fundamental to me. But my dad was an extra in Cimarron, which was the first Western. In 1930, it won the Academy Award for the Best Picture. It was the first sound Western, and it was about the Oklahoma land rush. And they filmed it in the San Joaquin Valley. And my dad and my grandfather were mule drivers, so they hired there was many mule drivers as they could get to drive the wagons, And there's this big, massive shot in the movie where, people are getting killed. It looks like they're driving across So my dad was one of those mule drivers. And for the rest of his life, he talked about how good catering was, right?
That's what he liked.
And so from as a little kid, I said, if my dad can make movies, I can make movies. That's an empowering little thing, right? It was a little thing. But all of that led into the movies. And it was, it's really important to know how quickly change has come about. Because when I was a kid, we used to have this old man that would come to Early Mark by Delano again, that didn't have a movie theater. And I'm very grateful to Moctezuma Esparza for putting a Maya theater in Delano. It's so significant, It's incredible. Because I'll tell you, all we had when I was a kid is this old man would come with a tent and set it up, and he had a kerosene projector. And it was run by kerosene, the light. And it was silent movies. It's Buster Crabbe, and it was amazing. But he would get the kids to clean this empty lot, and then he would give us a free pass, 10 cents. And we used the 10 cents to buy popcorn to sit and watch the silent movies. But anyway, it was like being in the 20s. And so it was the 40s, but for me it was like, wow, I didn't realize. But little by little, I began to focus on the movies like everybody and saying, I can do this, I want to do this, how can I do this? And I didn't major in film or anything like that. I became an English major and came into the theater. But nevertheless, the idea of the cinematic, the reality of cinema and the cinematic orientation is something that we all have in common now, because we live in the cinematic era. And we think visually. And so at Monterey Bay, for instance, one of the things about teledramatic arts and technology is that we wanted to teach the importance of nonlinear there's linear and nonlinear, There's Linear is kind of like logical, one after the other. Non-linear is intuitive. You come in this way. So it's a creative thing. And that has to do, again, with the fact that we're all a lot more visual. We speak a visual language. And it's a worldwide language now. It's a global language. We have learned a visual language through that art form. And we're quite good at it as a group, actually, as a culture. Look at the Mayans and what they used to do with their hieroglyphs, I mean, look at that little.
Exactly, that's
Now we
right
only,
here.
The grace of that kind of art, the grace of Mexican art, the visuality of Mexican art, is the raw stuff that you need for great filmmakers. So you're all potentially great filmmakers if you just dip into your culture, okay? And it helps to have a knowledge of technology. I was also a math and physics major. I discovered I love numbers. When I was in the first grade, one of the first things that Mrs. Smiley asked me to do is to get up and count to 100, which I did quite proudly. I stood up there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 100. Pilot said 100, fine, sit down, wonderful. But I became a math major because I discovered that I could differential calculus. I could get into numbers and understand the algorithms that dominate the universe with a mathematical perspective. Where did that come from? From our ancestors. I didn't find it anywhere but in myself. I found it through my parents. I found it in what I had in here. And so I was able to apply that. And that also came to bear when I became a filmmaker, because it's all about angles, it's all about lenses, it's all about knowing movement and being able to adjust, You work both sides of the brain, okay? Work both sides of the brain. And one of the fine things about being bilingual is that the synapses of the brain work automatically and quietly when you're talking bilingually. Una media frase en español and the other part in English. What I just did is a synapse, from the brain. Well, anybody that's bilingual, regardless of what the language is, if you're multilingual, even better, because the brain really sparks. So when they tell you English only, that's a very ignorant thing to tell anybody. Or Spanish only, or only Tagalog, It's ridiculous. Learn all the languages that you can. And use them and interchange them and see how language is very fluid. You become very poetic. But all of that, too, is part of filmmaking and the arts. And, the symphony of language is something that you can play with,
Yeah, definitely you have shown us that art is very important, and you have that natural artistic side, but you have also committed the effort of learning math and physics and all of those things. And we all want to remember that. It takes an effort. It doesn't happen by luck. Mr. Valdez, Luis Valdez's success it's been a commitment, an effort, And also the passion that you have shown for your culture, and I go back to that. It seems like you. Every movie, every play tells a story that brings us a little bit back to that campesino area, and it's very interesting how much passion you have for that. That kind of reminds me a little bit about an interview that I recently saw from her name is Gina Rodriguez from Jane Diversion. Maybe some of you have heard of her, and she was asked, well, in an interview, there's a lot of critics telling her that the way she presents herself on the show doesn't represent all Latinos. It represents only a small section, and she's Puerto Rican, and she said, look, I've heard this criticism. But I struggle with that. But at the end, I understand that we cannot. If we try to represent everyone, we will represent no one, because we are very unique. And your art is often represented the Chicano, the Latino. What would you say in regards to maybe a critic that say, well, why don't you represent everyone?
I do represent everyone. I mean, in the work, right?
Exactly.
And it reminds me of we went to Broadway with Zoot Suit in '79. The critics, with the same critics that savaged us, were the ones that were saying, bring it on, we love it. They saw it here in LA, it's like, it's great, once we got there, I mean, the long knives came out, right? And they went after us. And I was accused of manipulating emotions, you know? Well, what else does a
But that's what
playwright do?
filmmaking is, right?
I mean,
Art
wait a
is
minute,
manipulation of
manipulate
emotions.
what, you know? But the fact is that the politics got in the way. They weren't ready. They weren't ready, you know, to hear about Pachucos, and they weren't ready to recognize L.A. either. They weren't going to recognize this Western capital over here, you know. They were backward. That's the problem. You know, they were backward. And the dean of American drama critics, to his ill fame, I think, because he was a great teacher, Walter Kerr. He said that English was my second language. So this is why there was a line in the play that says, I Pachuco, you Pachuco, mi Pachuco. I said this, oh, he's talking about Pachuco yo. He didn't understand I was talking in Spanish. Pachuco yo. Not Pachuco you, Pachuco me, Pachuco we, you know. Which convinces me that he read the play. He read the play and he saw this. So they got thrown by my bilingualism. I understood that I was taking a risk by being bilingual, but I couldn't express all my reality, you know, in just only in English. I'm not an only English guy, you know.
And that's how we you know, we talk about what we know. Right,
That's
and
it.
how we, you know, your beautiful art has represented that. But most recently, your beautiful play, Valley of the Heart, you know, in which you talk about the struggles of the Japanese Americans during the Second World War, which were in prison. At the same time, Mexican Americans were abused and deported. You know, you beautifully connected both cultures, and I have to admit that while watching and maybe, you know, shedding some tears, I was also thinking, I think that Luis is telling us that we need to integrate and we need to become united, not just with the Mexican Americans, but with everyone. Would you say that your message, or what was your message?
Okay, well, it's a good question, and I want to entertain this answer very carefully, because Valley of the Heart is about this love story between a Japanese-American young woman, daughter of a grower, an Issei grower, and a first-generation Japanese, and then the Mexican-American, the oldest son of a Mexican-American family, and they fall in love. It's a true story. I had a childhood friend back in 1947. His name was Esteban. I thought he was Filipino, but actually it turns out his mother was Japanese and his father was Mexican. His mother was Thelma and the father was Benjamin, and they were Cornejo. And I didn't know that. I was shocked, you know, when I met the mother. I said, she's Japanese, you know, but she was beautiful, and she cooked. She was great. She was a great cook. So I always hung around, you know, for dinner. They lived in this little shack. The kitchen was a cardboard lean-to. But first rice ball I ever had in my life came from her hands. You know, arroz, you know, sin pollo, you know. But anyway, it was a revelation to me, and noodles and stuff that she would cook good. And then Mexican food like my mother. She was a great cook, you know. So that's my first experience literally in life, meeting a cultural fusion, you know, somebody that was half Japanese, half Mexican. So when I wrote the play, I called the lovers Benjamin and Thelma. Oh. And when we did the first workshop production, a couple came and said, why did you name the lovers this name? And I told her the story, and I said, why did you ask? And he said, because we had cousins that were Benjamin and Thelma. And they're still, their family, they had died. How about my friend? My friend had just died of prostate cancer, but the whole family came to see the play. All the children and grandchildren of Benjamin, the original Benjamin and Thelma, came to see the play. Wow. Now, what that speaks to is California history. What that speaks to is the West, okay? And we talk about the narrative. I love what you had to say about the narrative, because I think redesigning the American narrative is key to the future. And what we've all learned is westward expansion. Westward expansion, the covered wagons, you know, the pioneers. It's a lovely story. I buy into it, sure. Hey, some of it is true. But the other part, which is very, very gingerly treated in the movies, is that it meant the slaughter of Indians, right? All the way across. They were defending their homeland, but they were getting wiped out, men, women, and children, and then put in concentration camps called reservations. And that's a stain on American history that very few people can cop to. They can't cop to black slavery either, you know, that's the other big stain. And then when they got here, they had Mexicans here, so they started lynching them, you know, by the dozen. And then they had to take over the ranches, so they started marrying the daughters. And they got the old ranchos. And then they very quickly, they took over because the winning of the West was not, the narrative tells you they came in covered with Conestoga wagons. They came as pioneers. They came, well, yeah, but they came as corporations too, okay? They came as corporations in order to take the land and to invest in it. And once the railroad was established here, it was locked up. It became Frank Norris's octopus. It became the controlling factor of California. So it was already like a big corporate undertaking. But anyway, it was the westward movement. And that westward movement did not end at the Pacific coast. It kept going. It went on to Hawaii, and it went on all the way to the Philippines, okay? It didn't end there, though. It's important to know that. Isaac Newton said, for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. You know, that's basic physics. Well, in life, too. What we are experiencing now is the eastward movement. Now, Asians and Latinos are moving east. And our covered wagons are heading, man, to New York. Our covered wagons are heading to Europe. As a matter of fact, we have a place in Europe already. They welcome us in Europe, you know? But the thing is that the whole world is going back now. And you're part of that wave. You're part of this eastward movement. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not who you are. You are who you are. You're not your grandparents. Your grandparents had it tough. My grandparents had it tough. They couldn't move. They couldn't go to school. They couldn't do anything. My parents had a little bit better, but not much better. My generation had to fight for what we got, okay? I mean, I had a teacher, my homeroom teacher in high school, at the end of my first year, I was a straight A student in high school. And I say this because I don't look like a straight A student, okay? but the thing is that she has my grade. She gave me 2 A+. I had 2 classes from her. And I said, well, what are we going to do with you? And I said, well, I like college prep. And she said, well, is that realistic? Is that realistic? Oh. She was talking about this. She wasn't talking about my mind. So I said, well, thank you, teacher. She was pregnant, you know, and she was going to be a mom, so I didn't say anything. But the fact is that I had other teachers that pushed me. And my English teacher is still alive, God bless him. He's in his 90s. He lives in Texas, you know. But he inspired me to become a writer. And what was the difference? I got cariño from him in class. He would look at me and teach me, because I was the only one really looking at him all the time, you know. That's a trick, by the way. You're in school, look at your teacher in the eye. They'll teach you. Most students are going, oh, I didn't do my homework, you know. Look at your teacher right in the eye. They love that. Oh, you're looking at me. Okay, I want to tell you. You know, I'm going to teach you about math because you're looking at me, okay? Yeah, and so that teacher did the other. I had a number of Muslim Anglos. Frankly, we didn't have any Latino teachers, you know. So there were great teachers. They were Anglos, and I loved them for that, and they loved me. And the fact is that I learned from them, and the greatest compliment were 2. One was that my English teacher, Ed Farrell is his name, said, I've learned a lot from you. I said, you're my teacher, you know. He says, yeah, I know, but I've learned a lot from you. You're a teacher now. He said, you'll do me a favor. And I said, what? Will you speak at my funeral?
Oh, my. That's amazing.
He's still alive, thank God, you know. But but the thing is that you know, we have this relationship. So we're talking about cultural fusion, and Valley of the Heart is about that kind. Not the one that I invented. It's in history, right? There were Mexicans and Japanese that married. There were Filipinos that married. Yeah, there were Punjabi Indians that married Mexican women because they weren't allowed to marry anybody else, right?
I think that we have so many stories to tell, and I love what you say that there are so many narratives that have to be said. Just like, you know, the history and the way it's been told is incomplete, as Mr. Fernandez clearly said, and I think that we have a lot of, you know, future, you know, movie directors and and playwrights maybe amongst us, hopefully amongst us.
We have to have.
And what advice, now, what advice would you have to, for a young Luis Valdez that is thinking, I would love one day to be like him? What advice would you give him?
Protect the kid inside, okay? I still have a 6-year-old in here, who got hooked on paper mache, and I go to him often when I need to create. I put the adult stuff aside, and I have to be a kid again, I have to have free flowing. Every artist, I think, can understand that. There's a kind of a molten version of you inside that you have to relate to when you're creating. But it's the love of it, it's the fun of it, right? Never lose the fun of it. For the love of music and color and drama, and all of that storytelling. I love to tell stories because it's the way that human beings learn, right? We learn through stories. And so I become a storyteller out of a necessity, really, because there was so much to learn and so much to teach. And I found that theater is one of the ways to get people together in a living situation. Movies are great. Television is great. But there's something very special about live performance. And there's a vibration that happens. Actually, it was just documented. Someone posted something on the internet about how there's a certain thing that happens in live performance. I call it a vibration. The Mayas used to call us uniquely. We're vibrant beings. So when we're in sync, as performers and as audience, we're vibrating at the same level, okay? Mm-hmm. And it's like music. You hit octaves. And that's sensing your life. Well, you sense that as little kids. When all those little kids running around playing, that's that vibration. That's that vibrant power. That's why we're all vibrant beings, And so, unfortunately, as people get older and they stop being kids, they lose the vibrancy. They lose that vibration. Allow yourself to vibrate, okay? You are the master of your own mind and of your own heart, okay? And the thing is that if you don't like a situation, change it for yourself. Who was it? Ralph Waldo Emerson, I think. He said, do the thing and you shall have the power. Do the thing and you shall have the power. And people say, I'm going to do my homework. Well, do it, man. Get it over with, Well, I got this job. Well, ahorita, vámonos. Let's do that, And do the thing. And it's not that daunting in the final analysis. But the arts are about that. It's about taking on tasks and then completing them and going on to the next thing. And you know what? You don't have to be famous. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to be anything. An artist is an artist for its own sake. Art's for art's sake, in that sense, because if you're an artist, you're vibrating, and that's who you are. You're a vibrant being in this huge universe. It's very important. And so I recommend that you take joy in what you do, find your joys, and enjoy them. Do that. Go with that. And if write anything, write poetry, write stories, paint pictures. It doesn't matter what. Work with wood. It doesn't matter. Work with clay. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's very important to be an artist, I think. We all have to have some art in our life, and not just in the museums, but in our lives. And so that's the power. I'm all about the empowering of the arts. The power of the arts empowers people. And that's why Teatro Campesino started out among some farm workers that didn't even know how to read. But they became great actors, because of the power of the arts. Okay.
Well, as we head towards the end, I would like to ask you, what are you passionate about? What is by making you vibrate right now? Tell us what you are working on that makes you vibrate right now.
Well, I'm working on a new play. I was commissioned by the Mark Taper. It's really, I can't talk too much about it, but it's for me, it's like closing the circle because it's about Delano. It's about the grape strike, but it's about the Filipinos.
Oh.
Who started the grape strike. And it's got Cesar in it, and it's got other characters, but the fact is that I wanted to put the focus where it started. and that the Filipinos are the Latinos of Asia. Okay, and there's a big Latino presence here in LA, not just a few right next door here, you know. And I was in the Philippines in 1971 by chance. I went with a group of artists. It was the 400th anniversary of the Philippines. This is before Marcos declared martial law. That's important to point out. And but he invited us to Malacañang, and Imelda was our hostess, and she was gorgeous and all that. But the fact is that, I mean, what they were doing was not so gorgeous. But the thing is that what I learned was that the Spanish galleons started to sail from Manila to Acapulco in 1571. And for the next 300 years, there was global trade between the Philippines and Acapulco and Mexico, and then all the way across to Veracruz, you know, across Mexico City, Veracruz, and to Europe. So that, and in Manila, they had this big shopping center, a mall, called El Parian, the Parian in Manila, where all of the Chinese silk and the lacquerware and the riches of the Orient were brought there. And then they were put on ships and brought to Mexico City. And in the Zócalo in Mexico City, there was another Parian. So you could go to Mexico City and buy Chinese pottery, Chinese dishes, porcelain, which was not available anywhere else. There was global trade, there was global communication between Mexico and the Philippines, or China, as the case may be. And the so-called Chinos that came were really Filipinos, you know? So, ironically, I mean, this coming together of Filipinos and Mexicans in the Delano grape strike was historic because it had not happened exactly that way before, you know. But certainly, people that work in the fields have known that all the colors have been there, all of the colors of the human race.
Of course.
And I grew up with Okies, you know, and I discovered, man, they're just as poor as we are, you know, they're just as Mexican as we are, you know. But the fact is that the world has things upside down, and there has to be justice for farm workers because they're the low people in the bottom totem pole, you know, and the people at the top don't do much except lie and steal, and so we need a more just world. I love the commentary about the culture, you know, la compañera, she's still here. Yes, there she is. About the sensibilities of people that come and ask for jobs and they're humble. That's a weakness in some instances, but it's also a strength, you know. I went to talk to a Hollywood producer once, and he listened to my pitch. And he says, okay, he said, let me give you a bit of advice. You're too articulate. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you're just too articulate. I heard what he said, essentially. He said, you know, don't try to convince me. You can't convince me in any way. But so for a brown man, a short brown man, to speak English with love and appreciation, you know, I guess is unacceptable in some ways. Pero también hablo español, you know, no perdí el español. See what I'm saying? I didn't lose my bilingualism. And I speak mathematics too, so cuidado, no chinguen conmigo, you know. And also I have a very strong compañera, and this year we're celebrating 50 years of marriage. Lupe, please
Lupe.
take a bow. It's a bit of advice to young people. We used to call it commitment back in the 60s. Commitment to a cause, commitment to people. And we all have partners. We need, you know, I'm not saying that everybody needs to spend 50 years. You can't make it, that's okay, you know. But the fact is that for me, being married to Lupe has been, you know, the lifesaver for me because I was one angry dude before I met her. She's calmed me down. She makes me grounded, you know. But more than that, she loves me, so that's really important. And we love each other, and we love our kids, and we love what we do. And so that's my advice to you. Love what you do. Find something that you love to do and do it. Enjoy it. And do it not just for yourself, but for everyone else, especially people like you that are still not sure of their own worth. We are completely, totally human, equal to anybody else on earth. This is a global world now. We are moving ahead. We are moving into the sexto sol. We are moving, actually it's the first sol again. We're starting the whole cycle again, the 25,000 year cycle we just completed in 2012. Our Mayan ancestors knew about that. It is empowering. And Mexico is one of the future great countries of the Americas. Don't let anybody dissuade you from that. The population is, half of the population is under 25. They're brilliant, they're creative. They just have to learn how to produce more food down there for everybody, you know, without screwing anybody. But the fact is that if Mexico can get things straightened out, it'll help other people as well. And we're going to do pretty well ourselves here. And the United States has a fighting chance to preserve its best qualities. But it's going to take courage, and it's going to take all of us to stand up to the liars and the phonies and the diablo in the White House, okay? It's, he's a disgrace. He's a disgrace, but we don't have to accept him. I was there for one of the last things that Obama did. It was wonderful to be there for the National Medal to the Arts. He was so cool. He's still cool, you know? And it was so great to shake his hand and to give him an abrazo and say, thank you, Mr. President. You know, I finally felt that the White House was my house. Ay, cabrón. But suddenly, you know, from one day to the other, it becomes quite the opposite. And it's not my house right now, I'll tell you. But it will be again. It will be again. We're going to take back the house. And it's going to be called the Brown House, you know? Just kidding. I don't know what it's going to be called. The outhouse. I don't know. It's like the outhouse right now, you know? But the fact is that there's a future here, and we're headed east. So load up your wagons, people.
Right.
Load up, because we're going east, man, and we're going to take it.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, I have one comment. A wonderful thing that one of my friends, he just recently passed, God bless him, but his name was Ernie Reyes. He's the founder of the National Hispanic Association of Real Estate Professionals, NAREP. And he said a wonderful thing. He said to Anglos, he says, our response should be to Anglos, we come in peace, but we have you surrounded. Which I found to be funny.
That is absolutely very, very good. Well, you've been the definition of a life of service, a life, you know, that has given so much to all of us. And we are very, very excited that you know, gave us the honor of participating in our launching event. I want to remind all of you that we have very exciting events upcoming. October 24th, we will have Alex Nogales, president of the National Hispanic Media Coalition, incredibly influential and smart man, and we're very excited to have him. You know, we'll have some amazing speakers as well that will inspire us, and you have inspired us. You have empowered us. You know, we understand that a life of service is very, very important. We can't just do everything just for ourselves, right? You clearly exemplify a life of service.
Let me just give a shout out, because I wanted to do this before también. All of you in the Mexican-American Cultural, the board, you know, and what you're doing is tremendous. You should know, I mean, I appreciate what you've done in this acknowledgement, really, but it's part of a long chain. And I had the privilege of knowing Dr. Ernesto Galarza. I don't know if you know his name. The dean, he was one of the first Chicano PhDs. He went to Occidental. He wrote a book called Barrio Boy, which I recommend, and Spiders in the House, Workers in the Field. A union leader, a scholar, brilliant, a forerunner of all of our leaders. Bert Corona. I mean, we talk about Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. We know all our leaders, the ones that we're familiar, but we're part of a long chain here. I go all the way back to Francisco Coronel, who was the alcalde of Los Angeles and used to stage pastorelas here aquí, across the street. And I think it's important for us to know our own history and to share it, okay? One of the things that I love about San Juan Bautista is that It was founded in 1797 when George Washington was still president. You know, people need to know that. But the fact is that we've had many leaders along the way that have contributed to this wave. It's just there are more of us now. And that's what people fear. And the fact is, what they don't realize is that we're part of the process of America. We've been part of the process.
We've been part of America for 170 years, right?
170?
Yeah, since we've been part of America since Americans came to Texas and California, and then we're part of we've been here, and of course way before, as you clearly said, way before. But we've been part of America, and we love America, and we want to contribute, but we want to change the narrative.
They've discovered the Cahokia, for instance, you know, which is St. Louis. You see the mound builders, you know, built a big city. The biggest indigenous urban center, which was in Kansas, you know, St. Louis. But it had links with San Juan Teotihuacan in Mexico, you know. So in other words, these connections across the Americas have been there. And know that, regardless of where you come from, that if you're coming to America and you're going to be American, you're going to tap into this part of the world without losing contact with the rest of the world, you know. Be totally and fully human.
Exactly. Okay? We don't have to forget our background to love America, just like many other great cultures. You know, like I said before, like the Jewish Americans, they love their culture, but they're great Americans, and also many other ones. I just want to end, well, first of all, thanking you, our friends, for being here today. It means a lot to us that you're here on our launching event, and of course, we are absolutely honored in Roxana Moya, who was shaking with excitement of meeting you. I want her to personally give you a recognition for being the Mexican-American history maker, the launching event, and thank you.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
That's
a recognition to you, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. And our friends, thank you so much, and we'll see you October 24th. Thank you so much.
This is lovely.
Thank you.
You've been taking a photo with the children?
No.
Photo. One photo, please.